get to the news. When asked by a reporter over the weekend if he had a message for North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, President Biden said, quote, "Hello, period." Which sounds lame, but remember, a hello followed by a period is the scariest text you can receive. In her new memoir, former Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway writes that her husband, George Conway's attacks against the administration were, quote, "sneaky, almost sinister, and it's honestly why she fell in love with him all over again." Conway also writes that former President Trump was, quote, "a feminist who repeatedly supported and promoted her." Said Trump, "Thanks, Marianne." New York Mayor Eric Adams is reportedly thinking about running for president in 2024 if President Biden does not seek re-election. Dude, have you seen what happens to New York City mayors who run for president? It has about the same success rate as asking out the barista. During a parade over the weekend in New York, Rudy Giuliani called a heckler a brainwashed asshole who was probably as, quote, demented as President Biden. Said an aide, "That's a sky dancer." Why are you waving your arms around? Former Vice President Mike Pence said in a new interview that he's open to running for president in 2024. I mean, so many people at the Capitol were telling him to. You better run, Mike Pence! You better run! Krispy Kreme will give out free donuts this week to any high school or college senior that visits a store wearing class of 2022 apparel. And Dunkin' said they'd give a free donut to anyone who comes in wearing a shirt. Any shirt. The luxury automaker Mercedes-Benz announced last week that it has sold the world's most expensive car to a private owner for $142 million. Apparently, it costs that much because the tank is full. And finally, a man in Wisconsin last week celebrated his 50th anniversary of eating McDonald's Big Mac almost daily and has only missed 8 days. That's not bad. 50 years of Big Macs and only 8 heart attacks. President Biden said yesterday that the U.S. economic recovery is going to take some time. Okay, take some time like the Amazon option that saves you $1, or take some time like Avatar 2. If he were any more vague, he'd be a magic 8-ball. President Biden said for the third time yesterday that the U.S. would respond militarily if China tries to invade Taiwan. Well, at least he's capable of taking a firm stand on problems we don't have yet. Yeah, we'll fight China. Student loans? Let me call some people. In her new memoir, ex-Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway acknowledges that former President Trump lost the 2020 election. I know, I was surprised too. However, she does say he lost to William Howard Taft. She just can't help but get one lie in there. According to a new report, ex-Trump attorney Michael Cohen said in a recent deposition that former President Trump was afraid of getting pied in the face by demonstrators. I don't know, that feels like some reverse psychology. You know what? You know what would totally own me if someone threw an entire freshly baked pie right in my face? Even worse if it had some of that cinnamon crumble stuff on top. Also, if they also hit me with a side of whipped cream, oh, I would be so delicious. I mean, embarrassed. A guitar played by the late Kurt Cobain sold in an auction over the weekend for nearly $5 million. It's the perfect way to say, I don't get what he was singing about. That's working at home with some stepdads right now. That joke's landing with some stepdads right now at home. And I'm willing to suffer through this moment with you guys. But I see you. Stepdads. Stepdads, I see you. Sorry about everybody here. They're doing their own thing. The fast food chain Arby's announced yesterday that it will add a hamburger to its menu for the first time in its history. But people don't go to Arby's because they want a burger. They go there because everything else is closed. Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band announced today that they'll go on tour next year after a 6-year hiatus. Though, just to be safe, they're gonna put a sneeze guard between Bruce and Stevie. Stepdads. I don't know why I tried to do 2 for you in the same show. Firefighters in New Jersey recently removed a 4-foot monitor lizard from a tree in a residential neighborhood. Isn't that wild? There's a tree in New Jersey. Don't shake your head, Wally. Our cue card, New Jersey's Wally over on cue cards is like, oh, trees. It's just very distracting to read cue cards when you're scoffing at the punchline.
I have 2 trees in my yard.
What'd you say?
I have 2 trees in my own yard.
2 trees? Wow.
That's right.
Oh, 2-tree Wally. Are you gonna go to Wally's 2-tree summer party? And finally, New York City yesterday removed its last public payphone from service. But don't worry, anywhere else in New York will still be a public restroom. President Biden spoke from the White House on Tuesday and asked when the country will be ready to stand up to the gun lobby. When we will? That's like your landlord saying, ooh, you gotta do something about these mice. The White House has announced that the K-pop group BTS will appear next week with President Biden because the White House is always looking for ways to make Biden look even older. I mean, look at that. That's like a Korean remake of Scooby-Doo. I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for these pesky kids and their catchy hooks. Georgia Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker said in a new interview that he's never heard former President Trump say that the 2020 election was stolen from him. Even more troubling, he also said, who's this Herschel Walker I keep hearing about? That's right, Herschel Walker said that he's never heard Trump say that the 2020 election was stolen, which is kind of like saying, you've never heard Flo talk about progressive. I've never heard her talk about anything else. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene won this week's Republican primary in Georgia's 14th congressional district, but just for fun, she's gonna storm the Capitol anyway. It's a celebration storm. MSNBC announced this week that former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki will host a new streaming show. Well, let's hope White House to NBC goes better than NBC to White House. A romance novelist, all right. I don't remember what show that was. It could have been on any network. A romance novelist in Oregon who wrote a blog post titled How to Murder Your Husband was convicted yesterday of killing her husband. In case you were wondering how far you have to go to get someone to read a blog post. According to a new survey, 41% of Americans said that their largest single monthly expense is rent or mortgage, and one said dinosaur skulls. Amtrak this week released pictures of its new Acela trains, which will feature contactless restrooms. Well, contactless depending on your balance. Walking down one of those like walking down an old rope bridge. And finally, a plaster cast of the late singer Jimi Hendrix's penis is set to be unveiled next month at the Phallological Museum in Iceland, which houses the world's largest display of penises. It costs adults $10 to enter, while members get in free. He writes in my voice. That's what I like about it. You guys, that was a monologue.